The fifth chapter. Polynesia has a plan. Then the doctor told me to take the wheel while he made a little calculation with his map and worked out what new course we should take. I shall have to run for the Capa Blancas after all, he told me when the seaman's back was turned. Dreadful nuisance, but I'd sooner swim back to Puddleby than have to listen to that fellow's talk all the way to Brazil. Indeed, he was a terrible person, this Ben Butcher. You'd think that anyone, after being told he wasn't wanted, would have had the decency to keep quiet. But not Ben Butcher. He kept going round the deck pointing out all the things we had wrong. According to him, there wasn't a right thing on the whole ship. The anchor was hitched up wrong. The hatches weren't fastened down properly. The sails were put on back to front. All our knots were the wrong kind of knots. At last, the doctor told him to stop talking and go downstairs. He refused, said he wasn't going to be sunk by landlubbers while he was still able to stay on deck. This made us feel a little uneasy. He was such an enormous man, there was no knowing what he might do if he got really obstreperous. Bumpo and I were talking about this downstairs in the dining saloon when Polynesia, Jip, and Chi-Chi came and joined us. And as usual, Polynesia had a plan.
Listen, she said, I am certain this Ben Butcher is a smuggler and a bad man. I am a very good judge of seamen, remember, and I don't like the cut of this man's jib.
Do you really think, I interrupted, that it is safe for the doctor to cross the Atlantic without any regular seamen on his ship? You see, it had upset me quite a good deal to find that all the things we had been doing were wrong. And I was beginning to wonder what might happen if we ran into a storm, particularly as Miranda had only said the weather would be good for a certain time, and we seemed to be having so many delays. But Polynesia merely tossed her head scornfully.
Oh, bless you, my boy, she said. You're always safe with John Dolittle. Remember that. Don't take any notice of that stupid old salt. Of course, it is perfectly true the doctor does do everything wrong, but with him it doesn't matter. Mark my words, if you travel with John Dolittle, you always get there, as you heard him say. I've been with him lots of times, and I know. Sometimes the ship is upside down when you get there, and sometimes it's right way up. But you get there just the same. And then, of course, there's another thing about the doctor, she added thoughtfully. He always has extraordinary luck, good luck. He may have his troubles, but with him things seem to have a habit of turning out all right in the end. I remember once, when we were going through the Straits of Magellan, the wind was so strong.
But what are we going to do about Ben Butcher? Jip put in. You had some plan, Polynesia, hadn't you?
Yes. What I'm afraid of is that he may hit the doctor on the head when he's not looking and make himself captain of the Curlew. Bad sailors do that sometimes. Then they run the ship their own way and take it where they want. That's what you call a mutiny.
Yes, said Jip, and we ought to do something pretty quick. We can't reach the Capa Blancas before the day after tomorrow at best. I don't like to leave the doctor alone with him for a minute. He smells like a very bad man to me.
Well, I've got it all worked out, said Polynesia. Listen, is there a key in that door?
We looked outside the dining room and found that there was.
All right,
said Polynesia.
Now, Bumpo lays the table for lunch and we all go and hide. Then, at 12 o'clock, Bumpo rings the dinner bell down here. As soon as Ben hears it, he'll come down expecting more salt and beef. Bumpo must hide behind the door outside. The moment that Ben is seated at the dining table, Bumpo slams the door and locks it. Then we've got him. See?
How strategenius, Bumpo chuckled. As Cicero said, perex cum parishioners facilimi congregation. All lay the table at once.
Yes, and take that Worcestershire sauce off the dresser with you when you go out, said Polynesia. Don't leave any loose eatables around. That fellow has had enough to last any man for 3 days. Besides, he won't be so inclined to start a fight when we put him ashore at the Capa Blancas if we thin him down a bit before we let him out.
So we all went and hid ourselves in the passage where we could watch what happened. And presently Bumpo came to the foot of the stairs and rang the dinner bell like mad. Then he hopped behind the dining room door, and we all kept still and listened. Almost immediately, thump, 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 down the stairs tramped Ben Butcher, the able seaman. He walked into the dining saloon, sat himself down at the head of the table in the doctor's place, tucked a napkin under his fat chin, and heaved a sigh of expectation. Then, bang! Bumpo slammed the door and locked it.
That settles him for a while,
said Polynesia, coming out from her hiding place.
Now let him teach navigation to the sideboard. Gosh, the cheek of that man! I've forgotten more about the sea than that lumbering lout will ever know. Let's go upstairs and tell the doctor. Bumpo, you will have to serve the meals in the cabin for the next couple of days.
And bursting into a rollicking Norwegian sea song, she climbed up to my shoulder, and we went on deck. The 6th chapter, The Bed Maker of Monteverde. We remained 3 days in the Capa Blanca Islands. There were 2 reasons why we stayed there so long when we were really in such a hurry to get away. One was the shortage in our provisions caused by the able seaman's enormous appetite. When we came to go over the stores and make a list, we found that he had eaten a whole lot of other things besides the beef. And having no money, we were sorely puzzled how to buy more. The doctor went through his trunk to see if there was anything he could sell, but the only thing he could find was an old watch with the hands broken and the back dented in. And we decided this would not bring us in enough money to buy much more than a pound of tea. Bumpo suggested that he sing comic songs in the streets, which he had learned in Jolliginki, but the doctor said he did not think that the islanders would care for African music. The other thing that kept us was the bullfight. In these islands, which belonged to Spain, they had bullfights every Sunday. It was on a Friday that we arrived there, and after we had got rid of the able seaman, we took a walk through the town. It was a very funny little town, quite different from any that I had ever seen. The streets were all twisty and winding, and so narrow that a wagon could only just pass along them. The houses overhung at the top and came so close together that people in the attics could lean out of the windows and shake hands with their neighbors on the opposite side of the street. The doctor told us the town was very, very old. It was called Monteverde. As we had no money, of course, we did not go to a hotel or anything like that. But on the second evening, when we were passing by a bed maker's shop, we noticed several beds which the man had made standing on the pavement outside. The doctor started chatting in Spanish to the bedmaker, who was sitting at his door whistling to a parrot in a cage. The doctor and the bedmaker got very friendly, talking about birds and things, and as it grew near to supper time, the man asked us to stop and sup with him. This, of course, we were very glad to do, and after the meal was over, very nice dishes they were, mostly cooked in olive oil. I particularly liked the fried bananas. We sat outside on the pavement again and went on talking far into the night. At last, when we got up to go back to our ship, this very nice shopkeeper wouldn't hear of our going away on any account. He said the streets down by the harbor were very badly lighted, and there was no moon. We would surely get lost. He invited us to spend the night with him and go back to our ship in the morning. Well, we finally agreed, and as our good friend had no spare bedrooms, the three of us, the doctor, Bumpo, and I, slept on the beds set out for sale on the pavement before the shop. The night was so hot we needed no coverings. It was great fun to fall asleep out of doors like this, watching the people walking to and fro, and the gay life of the streets. It seemed to me that Spanish people never went to bed at all. Late as it was, all the little restaurants and cafes around us were wide open, with customers drinking coffee and chatting merrily at the small tables outside. The sound of a guitar strumming softly in the distance mingled with the clatter of chinaware and the babble of voices. Somehow it made me think of my mother and father, far away in Puddleby, with their regular habits, the evening practice on the flute and the rest, doing the same thing every day. I felt sort of sorry for them in a way, because they missed the fun of this traveling life, where we were doing something new all the time, even sleeping differently. But I suppose if they had been invited to go to bed on a pavement in front of a shop, they wouldn't have cared for the idea at all. It is funny how some people are. The 7th chapter, The Doctor's Wager. Next morning, we were awakened by a great racket. There was a procession coming down the street, a number of men in very gay clothes, followed by a large crowd of admiring ladies and cheering children. I asked the doctor who they were. "They are the bullfighters," he said. "There is to be a bullfight tomorrow." "What is a bullfight?" I asked. To my great surprise, the doctor got red in the face with anger. It reminded me of the time when he had spoken of the lions and tigers in his private zoo. "A bullfight is a stupid, cruel, disgusting business," said he. "These Spanish people are most lovable and hospitable folk. How they can enjoy these wretched bullfights is a thing I could never understand." Then the doctor went on to explain to me how a bull was first made very angry by teasing and then allowed to run into a circus where men came out with red cloaks waved them at him and ran away. The next bull was allowed to tire himself out by tossing and killing a lot of poor old broken down horses who couldn't defend themselves. Then, when the bull was thoroughly out of breath and wearied by this, a man came out with a sword and killed the bull. "Every Sunday," said the doctor, "in almost every big town in Spain, there are 6 bulls killed like that and as many horses." "But aren't the men ever killed by the bull?" I asked. "Unfortunately, very seldom," said he. "A bull is not nearly as dangerous as he looks, even when he's angry, if you are only quick on your feet and don't lose your head. These bullfighters are very clever and nimble, and the people, especially the Spanish ladies, think no end of them. A famous bullfighter, or matador as they are called, is a more important man in Spain than a king. Here comes another crowd of them round the corner. Look, see the girls throwing kisses to them. Ridiculous business." At that moment, our friend the bedmaker came out to see the procession go past. And while he was wishing us good morning and inquiring how we had slept, a friend of his walked up and joined us. The bedmaker introduced this friend to us as Don Enrique Cardenas. Don Enrique, when he heard where we were from, spoke to us in English. He appeared to be a well-educated, gentlemanly sort of person. "And you go to see the bullfights tomorrow, yes?" he asked the doctor pleasantly. "Certainly not," said John Dolittle firmly. I don't like bullfights, cruel, cowardly shows. Don Enrique nearly exploded. I never saw a man get so excited. He told the doctor that he didn't know what he was talking about. He said bullfighting was a noble sport and that the matadors were the bravest men in the world. Oh, rubbish, said the doctor. You never give the poor bull a chance. It is only when he is all tired and dazed that your precious matadors dare to try and kill him. I thought the Spaniard was going to strike the doctor. He got so angry. While he was still spluttering to find words, the bedmaker came between them and took the doctor aside. He explained to John Dolittle in a whisper that this Don Enrique Cardenas was a very important person, that it was who supplied the bulls, a special strong black kind, and his own farm for all the bullfights in the Capa Blancas. He was a very rich man, the bedmaker said, a most important personage. He mustn't be allowed to take offense on any account. I watched the doctor's face as the bedmaker finished, and I saw a flash of boyish mischief come into his eyes, as though an idea had struck him. He turned to the angry Spaniard. Don Enrique, he said, you tell me your bullfighters are very brave men and skillful. It seems I have offended you by saying that bullfighting is a poor sport. What is the name of the best matador you have for tomorrow's show? Pepito de Malaga, said Don Enrique. One of the greatest names, one of the bravest men in all Spain. Very well, said the doctor. I have a proposal to make to you. I've never fought a bull in my life. Now, supposing I were to go into the ring tomorrow with Pepito de Malaga and any other matadors you choose, and if I can do more tricks with a bull than they can, would you promise to do something for me? Don Enrique threw back his head and laughed. Man, he said, you must be mad. You would be killed at once. Once has to be trained for years to become a proper bullfighter. Supposing I were willing to take the risk of that, you're not afraid, I take it, to accept my offer? The Spaniard frowned. Afraid? He cried. Sir, if you can beat Pepito de Malaga in the bull ring, I'll promise you anything it is possible for me to grant. Very good, said the doctor. Now I understand that you are quite a powerful man in these islands. If you wish to stop all bullfighting here after tomorrow, you could do it, couldn't you? Yes, said Don Enrique proudly. I could. Well, that is what I ask of you. If I win my wager, said John Dolittle, if I can do more with angry bulls than can Pepito de Malaga, you are to promise me that there shall never be another bullfight in Capa Blancas so long as you are alive to stop it. Is it a bargain? The Spaniard held out his hand. It is a bargain, he said. I promise. But I must warn you that you are merely throwing your life away, for you will certainly be killed. However, that is no more than you deserve for saying that bullfighting is an unworthy sport. I will meet you here tomorrow morning if you should wish to arrange any particulars. Good day, sir. As the Spaniard turned and walked into the shop with the bedmaker, Polynesia, who had been listening as usual, flew up onto my shoulder and whispered in my ear.
I have a plan. Get hold of Bumpo and come someplace where the doctor can't hear us. I want to talk to you.
I nudged Bumpo's elbow, and we crossed the street and pretended to look into a jeweler's window, while the doctor sat down upon his bed to lace up his boots, the only part of his clothing he had taken off for the night.
Listen, said Polynesia, I've been breaking my head trying to think up some way we can get money to buy those stores with, and at last I've got it.
The money? Said Bumpo.
No, stupid, the idea. to make the money with. Listen, the doctor is simply bound to win this game tomorrow, sure as you're alive. Now, all we have to do is to make a side bet with these Spaniards. They're great on gambling, and the trick's done.
What's a side bet? I asked. Oh, I know what that is, said Bumpo proudly. We used to have lots of them at Oxford when boat racing was on. I go to Don Enrique and say, I bet you £100 the doctor wins. Then if he does win, Don Enrique pays me £100. And if he doesn't, I have to pay Don Enrique.
That's the idea, said Polynesia. Only don't say £100. Say 2,500 pesetas. Now, come and find old Don Ricky Ticky and try to look rich.
So we crossed the street again and slipped into the bed maker's shop while the doctor was still busy with his boots. Don Enrique, said Bumpo, allow me to introduce myself. I am the Crown Prince of Jalaginki. Would you care to have a small bet with me on tomorrow's bullfight? Don Enrique bowed. Why, certainly, he said. I shall be delighted, but I must warn you that you are bound to lose. How much? Oh, a mere trifle, said Bumpo. Just for the fun of the thing, you know. What do you say to 3,000 pesetas? I agree, said the Spaniard, bowing once more. I will meet you after the bullfight tomorrow.
So, that's all right, said Polynesia as we came out to join the doctor. I feel as though quite a load had been taken off my mind.
The 8th chapter, The Great Bullfight. The next day was a great day in Monteverde. All the streets were hung with flags, and everywhere gaily dressed crowds were to be seen flocking towards the bullring, as the big circus was called where the fights took place. The news of the doctor's challenge had gone round the town and, it seemed, had caused much amusement to the islanders. The very idea of a mere foreigner daring to match himself against the great Pepito de Malaga. Serve him right if he got killed. The doctor had borrowed a bullfighter's suit from Don Enrique, and very gay and wonderful he looked in it, though Bumpo and I had hard work getting the waistcoat to close in front, and even then the buttons kept bursting off it in all directions. When we set out from the harbor to walk to the bullring, crowds of small boys ran after us, making fun of the doctor's fatness, calling out, Juan Hagapoco, el grueso matador, which is the Spanish for John Dolittle, the fat bullfighter. As soon as we arrived, the doctor said he would like to take a look at the bulls before the fight began, and we were at once led to the bullpen, where, behind a high railing, 6 enormous black bulls were tramping around wildly. In a few hurried words and signs, the doctor told the bulls what he was going to do and gave them careful instructions for their part of the show. The poor creatures were tremendously glad when they heard that there was a chance of bullfighting being stopped, and they promised to do exactly as they were told. Of course, the man who took us in there didn't understand what we were doing. He merely thought the fat Englishman was crazy when he saw the doctor making signs and talking in ox tongue. From there, the doctor went to the matadors' dressing rooms, while Bumpo and I, with Polynesia, made our way into the bullring and took our seats in the great open-air theater. It was a very gay sight. Thousands of ladies and gentlemen were there, all dressed in their smartest clothes, and everybody seemed very happy and cheerful. Right at the beginning, Don Enrique got up and explained to the people that the first item on the program was to be a match between the English doctor and Pepito de Malaga. He told them what he had promised if the doctor should win, But the people did not seem to think there was much chance of that. A roar of laughter went up at the very mention of such a thing. When Pepito came into the ring, everybody cheered. The ladies blew kisses, and the men clapped and waved their hats. Presently, a large door on the other side of the ring was rolled back, and in galloped one of the bulls. Then the door was closed again. At once the matador became very much on the alert. He waved his red cloak, and the bull rushed at him. Pepito stepped nimbly aside, and the people cheered again. This game was repeated several times, but I noticed that whenever Pepito got into a tight place and seemed to be in real danger from the bull, an assistant of his, who always hung around somewhere near, drew the bull's attention upon himself by waving another red cloak. Then the bull would chase the assistant, and Pepito was left in safety. Most often, as soon as he had drawn the bull off, this assistant ran for the high fence and vaulted out of the ring to save himself. They evidently had it all arranged, these matadors, and it didn't seem to me that they were in very great danger from the poor clumsy bulls so long as they didn't slip and fall. After about 10 minutes of this kind of thing, the small door into the matador's dressing room opened, and the doctor strolled into the ring. As soon as his fat figure, dressed in sky blue velvet, appeared, the crowd rocked in their seats with laughter. Juan Hagapoco, as they had called him, walked out into the center of the ring and bowed ceremoniously to the ladies in the boxes. Then he bowed to the bull. Then he bowed to Pepito. While he was bowing to Pepito's assistant, the bull started to rush at him from behind. "Look out! Look out, the bull! You will be killed!" yelled the crowd. But the doctor calmly finished his bow. Then turning round, he folded his arms, fixed the onrushing bull with his eye, and frowned a terrible frown. Presently, a curious thing happened. The bull's speed got slower and slower. It almost looked as though he were afraid of that frown. Soon he stopped altogether. The doctor shook his finger at him. He began to tremble. At last, tucking his tail between his legs, the bull turned round and ran away. The crowd gasped. The doctor ran after him. Round and round the ring they went, both of them puffing and blowing like grampuses. Excited whispers began to break out among the people. This was something new in bullfighting, to have the bull running away from the man instead of the man away from the bull. At last, in the 10th lap, with a final burst of speed, Juan Hagapoco, the English matador, caught the poor bull by the tail. Then, leading the now timid creature into the middle of the ring, the doctor made him do all manner of tricks, standing on the hind legs, standing on the front legs, dancing, hopping, rolling over. He finished up by making the bull kneel down. Then he got to his back and did handsprings and other acrobatics on the beast's horns. Pepito and his assistant had their noses sadly out of joint. The crowd had forgotten them entirely. They were standing together by the fence, not far from where I sat, muttering to one another and slowly growing green with jealousy. Finally, the doctor turned towards Don Enrique's seat and bowing said in a loud voice, "This bull is no good any more. He's terrified and out of breath. Take him away, please."
"Does the caballero wish for a fresh bull?"
asked Don Enrique. "No," said the doctor. "I want 5 fresh bulls, and I would like them all in the ring at once, please." At this, a cry of horror burst from the people. They had been used to seeing matadors escaping from one bull at a time, but 5? That must mean certain death. Pepito sprang forward and called to Don Enrique not to allow it, saying it was against all the rules of bullfighting. "Ha!" Polynesia chuckled into my ear.
It's like the doctor's navigation. He breaks all the rules, but he gets there. If they'll only let him, he'll give them the best show for their money they ever saw.
A great argument began. Half the people seemed to be on Pepito's side, and half on the doctor's side. At last the doctor turned to Pepito and made another very grand bow, which burst the last button off his waistcoat. Well, of course, if the caballero is afraid, he began with a bland smile.
Afraid! Screamed Pepito. I am afraid of nothing on earth. I am the greatest matador in Spain. With this right hand, I have killed 957 bulls.
All right, then, said the doctor. Let us see if you can kill 5 more.
Let the bulls in, he shouted.
Pepito de Malaga is not afraid.
A dreadful silence hung over the great theater as the heavy door into the bullpen was rolled back. Then, with a roar, the 5 big bulls bounded into the ring.
Look fierce,
I heard the doctor call to them in cattle language.
Don't scatter, keep close. Get ready for a rush. Take Pepito, the one in purple, first, but for heaven's sake, don't kill him. Just chase him out of the ring. Now then, all together, go for him.
The bulls put down their heads, and all in a line, like a squadron of cavalry, charged across the ring straight for poor Pepito. For one moment, the Spaniard tried his hardest to look brave, but the sight of the 5 pairs of horns coming at him at full gallop was too much. He turned white to the lips, ran for the fence, vaulted it, and disappeared.
Now the other one,
the doctor hissed, and in 2 seconds the gallant assistant was nowhere to be seen. Juan Hagapoco, the fat matador, was left alone in the ring with 5 rampaging bulls. The rest of the show was really well worth seeing. First, all 5 bulls went raging round the ring, butting at the fence with their horns, pawing up the sand, hunting for something to kill. Then each one in turn would pretend to catch sight of the doctor for the first time, and giving a bellow of rage, would lower his wicked-looking horns and shoot like an arrow across the ring as though he meant to toss him to the sky. It was really frightfully exciting, and even I, who knew it was all arranged beforehand, held my breath in terror for the doctor's life when I saw how near they came to striking him. But just at the last moment, when the horn's points were 2 inches from the sky-blue waistcoat, the doctor would spring nimbly to one side, and the great brutes would go thundering harmlessly by, missing him by no more than a hair. Then all 5 of them went for him together, completely surrounding him, slashing at him with their horns and bellowing with fury. How he escaped alive, I don't know. For several minutes, his round figure could hardly be seen at all in that scrimmage of tossing heads, stamping hoofs, and waving tails. It was as Polynesia had prophesied, the greatest bullfight ever seen. One woman in the crowd got quite hysterical and screamed up to Don Enrique,
"Stop the fight! Stop the fight! He's too brave a man to be killed. This is the most wonderful matador in the world. Let him live! Stop the fight!"
But presently the doctor was seen to break loose from the mob of animals that surrounded him. Then, catching each of them by the horns, one after another, he would give their heads a sudden twist and throw them down flat on the sand. The great fellows acted their parts extremely well. I have never seen trained animals in a circus do better. They lay there, panting on the ground where the doctor threw them, as if they were exhausted and completely beaten. Then, with a final bow to the ladies, John Dolittle took a cigar from his pocket, lit it, and strolled out of the ring.